Hey, welcome to the Table Talk podcast. It is Tuesday, March the 18th. It is the week of the NCAA tournament. It starts tonight, and I'm pretty excited about that, David. How about you?
It's a good time. It's a big time of the year. I don't really watch it all the time, college basketball. I'm more of an NBA guy, so everybody can be angry about that
That's
later.
right. Yep.
But it's March Madness.
It is March Madness.
You have the teams that you can pull for, the teams, most of the times it's the teams you want to lose as much as the teams you want to. It's like, I don't know who this 15th ranked team is, but it sure would be cool if they won.
They won. I literally never feel more like a child than I do this week. Like Selection Sunday to the first weekend in the NCAA tournament, it is like I am just giddy the whole week. They put Rick Pitino, who used to coach at Kentucky, and John Calipari, who, of course, was the last coach at Kentucky, in the same pod. So if they both win this weekend, they could play each other on Saturday. And as I realized what was happening, I just slowly, started getting more and more off of my couch and then, leaped in the air when I realized what was happening. It's embarrassing, but this is what I do.
It's like the kid on Christmas when the parent says, I think there's one more behind the couch.
Oh, yeah, there is. And it was the last, pod announced, too. It was amazing.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier where it's like, this is a show.
Oh, 100%.
They know what they are doing, and they are pulling us in.
And they are good at it.
And they're good at it.
I will be,
So be locked in, and we usually have it even running on here out in the lobby some.
Yeah, you think these big screens in here are just for worship lyrics. You got to come by on here Thursday.
Yep.
There'll be laptops in hand typing, and there will be basketball on the screen. I used to love in school, when teachers during did your teachers do this in Ohio? Your teachers would bring in TVs or turn the TV on during the NCAA tournament?
They did not do that.
Our teachers would.
Sounds like you were close to
Lexington. It was amazing. They would just be those are the best days at school because you'd have the SEC tournament, they'd have it on, and then the next week for the NCAA tournament, they'd have it on, and it was do your work, but we're watching the game, and it was great.
We only watched educational shows like Numbers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
It's all math.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
It's education.
I miss those days, man. I could talk about that for hours. Those are some of the best days. They did one year. They put up a giant screen in the auditorium to watch, and you could buy a ticket. This is how school works in Kentucky. Don't worry about your class. Just pay $5. You can get popcorn and come watch the games. So 300 people, went and sat in the auditorium and watched the first day of the NCAA tournament, and it was so much fun.
Yep, sponsored by the Kentucky Wildcats.
That's right.
Creating lifelong fans.
That's right. It's a cult.
Young age. Oh man.
Well, that stuff can really impact your mind.
Yeah, it can. It can impact your mind. You know what? We should talk about that.
We should talk about that.
What about the mind? You talked a little bit about that on Sunday, right?
Yeah, we did. We got into loving the Lord with all of your mind, which honestly, I think this was maybe my favorite of the three so far, just because I think it's probably maybe next to soul, but it's one of the ones that there are a lot of misconceptions around. I mean, even for me, I think, we get so used to English translations and so used to English concepts and English definitions of words, and we hear mind and we just think, well, we have to know answers. We got to know things. And when you get into the Greek word dianoia, which is what's used in the Greek translation of the Old Testament, and the word that the gospel writers use as Jesus is expanding the Shema, it just blows up the definition so much, and it really gets into your understanding of reality, your worldview, your perception of what's real. It's really cool how deep that concept goes.
Yeah, and it's so easy for us to just think of education or understanding. And I loved how you said that is you can spend as much time, you can be some of the most educated people in the Bible in the world and not know Jesus.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the people that will know the Bible the best are people that I would say they don't have that real relationship. I'm not saying that, but there are a lot of people who really know the Bible, but don't know Jesus.
Right.
And that is a scary thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a humbling thing to think about. And it's something that we should keep in our minds,
Yes.
keep on our thoughts as we study and
Mm-hmm.
as we grow, and as that it's not just knowledge, it's just not knowing a bunch of stuff. It's
Yeah.
also the relationship.
Yeah, well, 100%. Like you're right. I mean, some of the most prominent biblical scholars in the world in terms of like research, universities, education, like they're atheists or agnostics. Bart Ehrman is one of those guys. Yeah. Can tell you a lot about the Bible and the New Testament. Doesn't believe in the divinity of Jesus. So, and then there are a lot of people that are believers, but you're right. The knowledge thing can get in the way, and knowledge is important, but knowledge. Scripture says puffs up, right? And so we just have to be weary of that. I think that's what you see with the Pharisees in the New Testament with Jesus is that they're super knowledgeable, but they've missed God's heart in the midst of their knowledge, and it's just a risk that we run.
Yeah, whitewashed tombs.
100%.
What he calls them. It's like they know the rules. It looks like they're following the rules, but it's not impacting them from the inside out.
Yeah.
And I would say, because as I listened to your sermon, I would say, if you're listening to Kaleb's sermon and you're thinking, do you guys hear this? Hey,
Yeah.
are you hearing this?
Yeah.
Then you probably need to make sure that you're not doing that.
Yeah.
Because it should force you during your sermon, it should force you to go, wait, do I have this? Am I just looking for knowledge, or am I just trying to prove my point, or am I stuck in one of these systems, or do I think I'm doing the right thing? But but I'm completely ignoring my relational side with God.
Yeah.
If I just think that might be an alarm bell, because that was
sure.
one of the things that was like I was tempted to do is to go, yeah, I wish other people would hear this. It's like, no, I need to hear this, and I think that's almost a natural thing for us is to think about, well, who is this about? And it's I need to make sure that this is about me, and that I'm making this sermon and this idea about what truths am I listening to, and how am I building my faith? Is it through my relationship with God, or is this through me just trying to be knowledgeable or to have all the right answers and follow whatever crowd I think is right in the moment?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that has gripped me lately is it's a Dallas Willard idea that we teach what we need to hear, oftentimes unconsciously.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel when I'm writing a sermon. Is like, if it doesn't speak to me, then I've missed it, right? If I'm not preaching to myself, and I think, good preaching, good teaching is that. I'm not here, I don't think any of us here, when you preach, when Ron preaches, whoever, we're not here to teach at somebody. I think we're here to learn together. And what I believe happens in preaching, when it's approached the right way, hopefully, is that the teacher, the speaker, whoever, really pauses and invites God and says, I need you to speak. Like, don't make this about me. I need you to speak. I need you to impact me with this. I need you to grip me with this text and this idea. And so, I had the same thoughts like while I was writing. It's like, well, I got to make sure that where am I at in this? Because what Paul talks about in Romans is don't be conformed to the patterns of the world. Well, in some ways we all are. Like, our pattern of conformity may be different from each other's, but in some ways we are all conformed to the patterns of the world. And so therefore we all need our minds renewed so that we can be transformed into Jesus' likeness. Yeah.
And this isn't a new debate. You have that kind of the nature and nurture is kind of, and I would almost say that this is kind of it's like nature as far as like, who were you around? Where were you? Where we put, and nurtured for me would be like, am I being nurtured by God? Is that, so it's like, there's a little bit of both of those, I would say, in our relationship. Who we're around, the people, if you're impacted by the people around us now, and I think God has patience for all of those. I think He understands that we're all in different places. We're all in different, and so I think He has patience with all that. But I think the nurture part, He's calling to us, and when we nurture that, it from His from our relationship with him,
Yeah.
he'll really help us to grow. And I just I think that there is a balance there that we're trying to meet, and but you can get unbalanced quickly.
Yes. Yeah, and I think like that's what happens in the New Testament. I mean, you see it with the Colossians, what I referenced Sunday. I mean, you see it with the Corinthians. You see it in a bunch of places, and I mean, Jesus talks about it even in Revelation and the letters to the churches. I mean, he tells the church at Laodicea, hey, you've gotten lukewarm. Like you're not hot or cold. You're not doing anything. You're just kind of there. So it can happen. We can get knocked off course. We can get swayed very easily. And I think, the enemy is really good at deceiving people who want to be faithful. Because it's not like you have to make them not believe. You just have to make them ineffective.
Yeah.
or believe that, what are the things in my life or in your life or our life that we have pursued believing it was in faithfulness, but it was actually more what Paul calls an empty philosophy, that just the enemy sort of diverted us down that path. And I think that can be a bunch of different things.
Sure.
But yeah, it is. We got to make sure we're being nurtured in the right place and by the right person, which is why I think that passage in James that I mentioned Sunday is so crucial, that draw near to God and he'll draw near to you. That's just, I think, where we have to start for all this to take hold.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this, I think a couple weeks ago, where we talked a little bit about how we have to be open to, we were kind of talking about relationships, open to criticism and open to, because our first initial reaction is to like tell them why we're right, or to bite back and defend ourselves. And I think that can be our relationship with God too, where we hear correction or we start feeling something, movement from the Holy Spirit of like, are you sure? Are you sure about this? And then to snap back and get defensive and go, yeah, well, I know. It's like, no, listen to that. Seek it out. Look, see what God is telling you in this, and make sure that you're seeking his truth and making sure that you're seeking the relationship with him and what he's called you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's just, I mean, I hope, I think I said this Sunday, but like, I'm not picking on anybody because this is something we all struggle with. This is something that followers of Jesus have struggled with since the time Jesus was on the planet. Like, you can watch Peter rebuke Jesus and say, you're not going to die. And Jesus is like, dude, yeah, get behind me. Like, I am. His dianoia, his mind, his understanding hadn't been shaped to Jesus's reality, but he spent 3 years every day with him, right? So this is a journey. It's a process. All of us, as Paul writes, see through a mirror dimly. Now, we can't see the whole picture, but the hope is that we are continually growing and taking steps. And I think that's what the enemy really wants to delay in us or deny or keep us from. It's just growing. We can grow in some wrong directions. And I think that's, Jesus talks about how, the path of destruction is wide, but the path to, salvation in him is narrow. I think you can look at that from a eternal life standpoint on one layer, but on another layer, I think you can look at that as, the path of Jesus' ways in his kingdom. That's a narrow path just because he's Jesus and the world doesn't really like his ways. And so the path away from that is much broader. And I think the enemy wants to try to just subtly diverge us off of that narrow path. And when he does that, we get swayed away.
Yep. So I think it's really important to approach all of that in prayer, to approach it with thoughtfulness and with study and things like that. But make sure that you're open and that you hear. I would say hear opposing sides and make sure that you understand what they're saying and why they're saying it, and or somebody that's trying to correct you or whatever it is. Hear them, hear what their criticism is, and make sure that you are taking it serious. And make sure that even if you don't change your mind on that subject, that you understand why and that you've gone to God and you've prayed about it and you've thought about it. And you make sure that you're doing things in relationship with Jesus, not just with your not just with your heart, or
Yeah.
I'm just going to do whatever I want,
Right.
and not just with my mind, where I just have to think everything through, and it's only logical, and it's like, no, we're going to make sure that we're doing what Jesus has called us to do.
And that's why I think I love the Shema and this all-in idea, because Jesus doesn't leave any area of our life untouched. You know, their heart, soul, mind, strength.
Yeah.
It's pretty all-encompassing. And some of us are more tempted to lean on certain pieces of that, probably. You know, some of us are more intellectual. Some of us are more rooted in our like physicality. Some of us are more rooted in like our heart and our feelings. Others of us are super spiritual and tend to maybe miss some of the realities of the world currently. And all those things are good. I think what's beautiful, what you just said, is that we all do have different understandings a little bit, and I think we can all learn from each other in some ways. But that's also the piece of testing what we interact with and engage with, asking God about it, asking for discernment, asking for wisdom, asking for His perspective, and asking Him to help us sort through all the different pieces.
Definitely. And so this week, we're kind of heading into the strength.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you said you're diving into more of what do they mean by these words.
Yes. Yeah.
Because this, I'd say, probably does bring in some physical, the idea of your strength and who you are, but it's even deeper.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. So the Hebrew word here is meod, M-E-'/OD, meod. And it is actually an adverb. Like it's translated almost as like very or muchness. So in the beginning, when God saw or made humanity, said it was very good. It's the Hebrew there is tov meod, very good. When Jesus says, in the Shema says, Lord your God with all of your meod, we often translate it as strength, but like the literal word there is all of your muchness, all of your very. And so what's kind of happened through the years is that different translations and different people have taken that concept in different directions. The Greeks translated it as strength, which is the tradition we kind of come from. The Aramaics translated it more having to do with finances and money, material wealth and resources. And then the Hebrews, they're just rooted in the idea of muchness, so they kind of stuck the same way. And really all three can be fine, because that idea of meod, the muchness, the very, is whatever you have, love the Lord your God with all of that.
Yeah.
The word that Jesus uses in the New Testament when he's telling the parable of the widow, the Pharisee goes in and gives a ton of money at the temple, and the widow goes in and gives very little. But, the English, she gave out of what she had. The Hebrew is she gave out of her meod. She gave out of her muchness. And so really it is just about taking whatever we have, our physical bodies, our relationships, our resources, our time, our talents, all of those things, all of our muchness, and giving it to God and loving God with it. So it's pretty expansive, and I think it's a great way to sum up that first part of the Shema, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been really good about the series, is seeing this is way more than just one aspect to all of these things.
Yeah.
This is almost all of them are a broader concept and places that each one of us needs to make sure that we're growing in.
Yeah.
That we need to be challenged, and challenge ourselves, and challenge others to grow in these different areas. And so I think it's been a great series, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been thought-provoking, and it's pushing me to be better and make sure that I know and understand and have approached everything from my relationship with God. And I think that's seeing my relationship with God differently, which is always challenging and always pushes you. And we've said this on here again before, where our relationships with God change. And the one that I had with God 10 years ago is different than 5 years ago, which is different than 2 years ago, which is different today, and it'll be different a year from now.
Yeah.
And so these type of conversations are ones that I think can grow. And when you challenge yourself and push yourself to understand it, I think that's huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it means to have a relationship with a living being, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the relationships that you have in your life with whoever, they change. if they don't, it's not healthy in a lot of ways. And so, as you age, your relationship with your parents changes. As your kids age, your relationship with them changes. As your marriage progresses, like your relationship with your spouse changes. And ideally, it's rooting yourself deeper, right? And I think that's how it is with God. Like, I think our relationship with God ideally continues to mature and grow. And that, that can look different, for different people because we connect with God in different ways. But I think that's the point. And I that's why I've really gotten a lot of this series too. All that to say, it's pushed me. And, even as I was planning this series, I wasn't necessarily planning on getting into all of the word study of it. But as I have gotten into it, it's been like, this has to be where it goes, because there's just so much depth packed into these words, which is why English stinks as a language. Right? I mean, it's fun, but like, I just think like the Hebrew especially is just, it's so deep and it's so meaningful. And Greek does the same thing, but just. Yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit, but I think it's just been really, really helpful for me, and I hope it's been helpful for you guys too. Yeah,
I know it has been for me, and I'm looking forward to this. The last week, correct, of this.
Well,
one?
2 weeks, 2 weeks more technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
So
good.
Meod and strength this week, and then we're going to end it with Jesus' expansion to love your neighbor as yourself.
Okay.
So we've got 2 more
perfect.
weeks in this technically.
That'd
yeah.
be great. Good. I'm glad. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
So we'll keep going.
Yeah, I am too. I'm going to be a little sad when it ends, but I think this could be something that we could come back to every few years and just walk through again.
I think it's worth it. I think it's one of Jesus' biggest teachings. So
He said it was the most important.
yes.
The
There you go.
greatest.
It's the greatest.
Yeah. So we can't talk about it enough.
Yeah. That's good. So I'm excited about it.
Me too. And hope you guys are having a great week. You should be hearing this on Thursday morning, and probably the first game tips off in about 4 hours. So call in a long lunch break and go watch a basketball game. See you guys later. Have a good week.